Now let's jump into the Nietzschean perspective. And before we get too deep into Nietzsche's philosophy of autonomy, here's a quick video from Jordan Peterson addressing the true definition of freedom, which I borrow from to a degree later in my exploration of autonomy.
Bring the story forward and propagate it and make it the most noble possible story. And then you motivate people to transcend themselves, which they need to do. So,
freedom as we understand it, and I want to unpack that a bit, something very, very few people in very few cultures down through the ages and even today have ever really experienced.
People think of freedom as the ability to implement your whim. And freedom opens up that as a possibility. But sustainable freedom, that isn't what it's about at all. It's primarily about responsibility. It's about determining which load you're going to pick up and carry. That's the proper definition of appropriate freedom. It's not dim gratification of instantaneous impulse. It's self-evident that that doesn't work. 2-year-olds do that, and that's why they can't live in the world. They can't organize themselves across time. They can't sacrifice the moment for the future. And the more sophisticated you get, I suppose, in some sense, the more you're able to do that. And then your freedom becomes the freedom to choose the proper responsibility. And that's also not something that we've been good at communicating to young people. If we talk to them about responsibility, we generally do it in a finger-wagging sort of way. It's like, well, you're breaking the rules, you're a bad person. And well, that may be true because people break the rules and there's no shortage of badness in people. But the proper message for young people is to say, well, no, you don't understand. You want to take on responsibility. You want to take on the heaviest load that you can conceive of, that you might be able to move, because it gives your life nobility and purpose. And that offsets the tragedy. And not only psychologically, not only does it offset it psychologically because you have a purpose and something to wake up for, right, and to face the difficulties of the day, but also because if you face the difficulties of the day properly, you actually ameliorate suffering, not only in the psychological sense, but because you make the world at least a less terrible place. And that's something, right? To move things away from hell is something, even if you're not, self-evidently moving forthrightly to heaven. To move things away from the worst they can be is, well, that's a noble goal in and of itself. And so it's strange that the maximum freedom comes with the adoption of a discipline and then also the adoption of responsibility. That frees you up and everyone else around you in the long run. And if you explain that to people, especially in this day and age when they've been fed a never-ending diet of idiot rights and freedoms, they're immediately on board with it because they know. They know that most of the meaning that people experience in their life is a consequence of adopting responsibility.
Nietzsche said, "Become who you are." What he's emphasizing here is the idea that true freedom and self-actualization come from embracing your individuality and unique identity instead of conforming to societal norms and expectations. He believed that people should strive to break free from the constraints of conventional thinking and live in accordance with their own values and desires, even if this requires them to go against the grain of societal expectations. Only by doing this can you experience freedom and the fulfillment of true autonomy. Nietzsche also claimed that modern life distracts us, it deadens us, it prevents us from becoming who we truly are or who we are meant to be. Rudyard Kipling said, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often, and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." This quote emphasizes the importance of autonomy and the struggle required to maintain your individuality in the face of societal pressures and the influence of the tribe. For Nietzsche, the pursuit of autonomy is a challenging but necessary journey, and one that is ultimately worth the effort in order to gain the freedom to be you. To Nietzsche, pursuing and maintaining autonomy was absolutely vital because it represents a break from traditional forms of authority and conventional norms and values. Nietzsche believed that individuals must question and challenge conventional morality and create their own set of values. Pursuing autonomy involves embracing your individuality, asserting your own will, and pursuing self-discovery. This leads to both the development of a unique perspective and the rejection of the herd mentality. This allows you to rise above the masses and become a higher type of human being. It's the way he might put it. Perhaps even a Ubermensch, capable of creating your own meaning and purpose in life. So pursuing autonomy is a necessary step in the process of self-actualization and exercising your will to power. Last but not least, I want to give a perspective on autonomy from arguably the world's greatest swordsman, the legendary Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi became the samurai goat, the greatest swordsman the world has ever seen, according to legend. He pursued autonomy and honor first and foremost. Not status, not love, not other people's opinions or women or a respectable house and neighborhood or material things in general. You can see his devotion to his pursuit of autonomy in his writings, the Book of Five Rings and Dakota. Sorry, I know I butchered that pronunciation. And this Dakota, or however you pronounce that, is literally translated into English is the way of walking alone. Doesn't get much more autonomous than that. One of his 21 principles is do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. Another one is be detached from desire your whole life long. Another one is never be jealous. Another is be indifferent to where you live. Another is do not pursue the taste of good food. You might be picking up on a trend here. Another one is do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. And yet another is do not act following customary beliefs. Still another one is do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your old age. It's kind of interesting where he went there. All of these different counterintuitive or counterculture ways of living. The reason he's the GOAT is because he eliminated the pitfalls and distractions from his life, the status symbols that bring mountains of crippling debt, worry, anxiety, and those invisible prison bars that we call bills. Right? He rejected these societal norms that confine a person or can confine a person and ultimately cause them a lot of unnecessary stress and keep them from fully actualizing. The moral of the story is this great Ronin, Musashi, along with many others like him in history, was able to limit the control of society on his life and thus gain a higher level of freedom and autonomy than most. In this next section, most of which will be in video 3 of this series, we'll cover the detailed ins and outs of how to gain autonomy and keep it, most likely by first taking it back from those who have established control of your life, whether that's your boss, lender, parents, government, fair weather friends, or even yourself. Here's the first 2 steps. 1 is awareness. Where attention goes, action flows, and where action flows, things grow. If you want to grow your autonomy in life, you have to be aware of what forms of autonomy exist in your life and which forms you value the most. So you have to audit your life. In next video, we'll talk about the different types of autonomy, like individual autonomy, ethical autonomy, artistic autonomy, academic autonomy, cultural autonomy, political autonomy, and much more. Step 2 is identifying the autonomy leeches, is what I call them. What is taking away your freedom in life? Who is taking away your freedom and your autonomy in life? We'll go over that fully in the next video. How to audit your life and determine how much freedom and autonomy you actually have or don't have, and how to take it back from the people, things, debt, and or habits that are leeching it from you. I'll see you there.